Hey, this is John Amos, and they say it ain't easy being green.
Can't wait.
The New York Jets
can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Robert Saleh. New York Jets got themselves a great one.
Get used to the mantra, all gas, no break.
I'm not going to lie to you. There's no way I'm not going to have enthusiasm on the sideline.
Darnold, wow, what a play. Still going. Inside the 10 for the touchdown.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. You know, as we mentioned, the next few weeks, we're going to do a few episodes, kind of going through the quarterbacks we think are the most likely candidates to be the Jet quarterback next year. That would be one, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, or Sam Darnold coming back to us to be with Robert Saleh and Gang Green in 2021. Going through these three guys, we need some experts to kind of break them down for us better than we could from the outside looking in. So we have a special guest this week from the Columbus Dispatch, Ohio State beat reporter Bill Rabinowitz joining the show. Thank you very much, Bill.
Nice to be with you.
Yeah, really cool. Appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time here. I know you've been with the Dispatch for a while. You put out 2 books on Ohio State also. So we'll be very happy to have your knowledge enlighten some of these Jet fans on the comings and goings of Justin Fields. Great season for Ohio State. I know the last game didn't end that great, but great season for them as a whole. Only one loss this year in the national title game. We're going to get into what you think about him as a prospect and his strengths and weaknesses. But before we get into that game itself, I just want to ask you what you think. I know it was a month ago, but the game itself, what do you really think went down in the game? Do you just think that the personnel was just, they were overmatched? Do you think it was a coaching thing? Do you think it goes a little bit on Justin Fields' shoulders? Why do you think the game went down the way it did?
I give most of the credit, honestly, to Alabama. I think they were that good. That collection of talent that they had, it was a special group. It just was. And I think Ohio State would have had to play a perfect game. And Ohio State just never really was able to get into a groove because of the pandemic and the games they missed. They didn't play in consecutive weeks after the first 2 weeks until, well, I don't think all year, actually, until the last 2 games. And I just think it was hard to get into a rhythm, and that they were missing some key players every game. But against Alabama, they needed everybody to be there and playing well, and they didn't have everybody. And so, then they lose Trey Sermon on the first play of the game.
Yep. And
I'm sure the game plan was, let's ride Trey Sermon, obviously supplemented with Justin Fields passing. But let's really, ride Trey Sermon 25, 30 carries, keep Alabama's offense off the field. And when he got hurt, there went the game plan. And, but again, mostly I give credit to Alabama. They were really good.
All right. Now, I wanted to go down memory lane just a little bit with Justin Fields. So he comes from Georgia. We know he was sitting behind Jake Fromm his freshman year, and he probably would have ended up sitting behind him his sophomore year. He ended up transferring over to Ohio State. Was it more of the fact that he just didn't want to play behind Fromm, or was there, maybe a lack of skill, or did they not see him potentially, at the start over there? What do you think was the genesis, the major genesis behind him moving over to Ohio State?
Yeah, obviously I didn't cover Georgia, so I don't really know what was going on down there. I think it was more a matter of he didn't want to wait anymore to play. And Jake Fromm had taken Georgia to the national championship game really within a year of winning it as a freshman. And kind of knew, do I really want to wait behind this guy? And Ohio State had an opening. I mean, Dwayne Haskins left. They really didn't have anybody. Tate Martell was clearly not going to be the guy. And so why not? And it worked out well, I think, for everybody. I mean, I think Georgia would have liked to have had Justin Fields this year, but they can't really.
That's true.
And it certainly worked out very well for Ohio State because Justin Fields, I've covered a lot of quarterbacks. He's the most complete quarterback that I've covered at Ohio State.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, he had a phenomenal year. 51 touchdowns total, 41 passing, 10 rushing. One of the reasons that was in 2019 when we know Coach Day was one of the reasons why he wanted to come to Ohio State. When he came, did the coaching staff, did Ohio State feel that they had their leader, that you guys saw him in practice and were like, wow, this is the real deal? Like you said, this is the most complete quarterback you've seen. When he first got there, what were those initial feelings like? Were you guys impressed by his skill set?
Well, college is different than the pros. We don't get to see him much. We saw a few practices that spring, just limited amounts of time. And honestly, he looked a little rusty. But you have to figure, look, this is a guy who is coming to a new school, new coaches, new teammates, new playbook, different state, trying to acclimate academically. So, you knew that there had to be growing pains. But I think the surprise was how quickly he did adapt. Yeah. And I think he was smart. The first year, he kind of stayed in the background a little bit, didn't kind of try to be that rah-rah guy. Knew he had to earn the respect of his teammates before he could really be a vocal leader. And that process happened gradually. But by this year, he was clearly the leader on offense. He was the guy, it was his offense. And I think he handled things very well. He never had a misstep on or off the field in terms of, behavior or any. I mean, he's just a very solid guy, comes from a good family. He was everything that Ohio State hoped he would be.
Yeah, those are all the things you want to hear too. All the off the field intangibles sometimes, which get overlooked. I know he's 13-1 there. 2019, this year he's 7-1. So that year in 2019 statistically was ridiculous. This year was obviously pretty good too. They had the truncated season, only played 8 games. And like you said earlier, and you know better than us, such a strange season because they basically only played really 5 regular season games. They had the Big Ten championship game, then they had the 2 college playoff championship games. So it is kind of strange to it's harder, I guess, to judge him when they talk about, a lot of people talking about Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. It doesn't seem like people are giving him as fair a shake as the year before just because he didn't play as many games. But I want to ask you a question. We kind of live in the difference between 1 week, or I should say 1 game, because after the Northwestern game, there's a lot of hype throughout the season, and that's really the only negative press, at least on a national basis, I remember Fields getting was after the Northwestern game. That was a tough game for him. I know he had a lot of incompletions, some turnovers there. He got sacked a bunch of times. I don't know. You know better than me. I think maybe his worst game that he played at Ohio State. Would you say that?
Question.
Yeah. Okay. So and then Bill. So after that game, the vibe, and this is why I wanted to ask you, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but just the vibe in Columbus after that game, going into the Clemson game, was anyone down on him, or was it just like, that's an aberration, that's a 1-game thing? Because in New York, the way we get so overhyped here, in New York, the papers are writing, we're in the middle of tanking our season, and people are like, oh, Justin Fields, forget about him. It's all about Lawrence or all these other guys. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's just 1 game. So how did you look at it after that game?
Well, everything got magnified because they played so few games. And in the other kind of big game Ohio State had against Indiana, he threw 3 picks.
Yeah,
and they were kind of bad picks.
Yeah.
So there you have Indiana and Northwestern, by far the 2 toughest teams Ohio State played.
Yeah.
Didn't play all that well. Now, he threw for 300 yards against Indiana, so it wasn't. But against Northwestern, he did not play well. And so when he goes in to play Clemson with Trevor Lawrence and all that's at stake for Ohio State after coming off that terrible loss last year, there was a lot of pressure on him, and he delivered. I mean, that game made him millions of dollars, because if he had had another clunker, who knows how far he would have slid. Now, I still think he's a first-round talent, no matter what. Scouts would see that. But if he had another bad game, a Northwestern-ish game against Clemson, and they lose, I think he drops middle of the first round, maybe lower. Who knows? But he put it all together that game. Ohio State played great. They were so motivated to beat Clemson. I mean, that was their Michigan this year, because they didn't play Michigan.
Yep, you're right.
And against Alabama, he played okay. He had the injury. He got hit really, that spear he took. Oh
my God!
So, he showed his toughness just by playing.
Yep. True.
He missed a couple throws, and he would have had to have been perfect. I'm not sure even that would have been enough, but it would have kept him in the game longer than it did.
Yeah.
Alabama, I tell you, even on defense, Ohio State almost always. Ohio State looked against Alabama the way Ohio State makes opponents look generally against them. They look slow against Alabama, and Ohio State's not a slow team.
No, not at all.
That's just what Alabama did. So his receivers didn't get a lot of separation. He wasn't protected as well as he had been, and he missed a couple throws. And against Alabama, you would have had to have been perfect, and he wasn't.
He would have had to have been perfect. And would you think that Clemson game, that national stage against Trevor Lawrence, he's been being compared to Trevor Lawrence right out of high school, 1 and 2, all the way. So being on stage, throwing 6 touchdowns, 385 yards, I think he had, 42 on the ground. Was that his singular best game you have seen him play as a Buckeye?
Yeah, because of the stakes, because of the competition, because of the stakes. Yeah, I mean, did he light up other teams, inferior teams? Yeah. If you give him time, he will pick you apart. The one knock on him is does he go through his progressions fast enough? Does he hold the ball too long sometimes? And I think those are legitimate questions for him to have to answer of NFL teams. But in terms of the arm strength and the accuracy and obviously his scrambling ability, I don't think that's really a question at all.
That's what I was really going to get to. And then against that Alabama game, like you said, he would have had to be perfect. And one of the things that we see or hear about Justin Fields and knock on him is that when the schedule play breaks down, when things go awry and he has to make a play, he's not as efficient at making those calls as if it's within the drawn play, right? And so do you think that's something that he is going to struggle with at the next level? Because frankly, in the NFL, not all things are going to go to script, and you're going to have to be able, I mean, that's why I don't mean to bring up the name, but a guy like Johnny Manziel, he was not successful in the NFL, but what he was able to find success within chaos. Do you think that's something that Justin Fields could learn how to do?
You know, he did make a lot of plays after the pocket broke down. He's fast enough to get out of the pocket, and the fact that he can run makes defenses wary, because obviously you can't commit to that. You can't just back off him because he will run. I think it's more in the pocket. When he's in the pocket and the first receiver is not there and the second receiver is not there, does he react quickly enough? That's a question. You know, I don't pretend to be a scout. I don't pretend to say he can or can't. I do know that's a question that scouts are going to be looking at and asking him and poring over tape to figure out. Every quarterback has weaknesses. That's just, and this is the time of year when it seems like all we hear are about people's flaws.
Right.
I think that's a legitimate question that he's going to have to answer.
I didn't know. I was wondering if that was an accurate criticism of him or not, because I didn't know. And it's good to hear. I mean, all quarterbacks are going to have some things, no matter who you are, even if it's Trevor Lawrence or whoever the case may be, they're going to have some things that rookie year they're going to have to improve on. And what I want to ask you, just on the flip side, some positive things about him. What are the things in his skill set? You mentioned some of them already, but just if you could let the audience know, say he became a Jet or whatever team you think he might go to, what are some of the positive things that are in his skill set now, even before he plays his rookie season, that you think will translate to the NFL, that will really excite teams next year?
Yeah, he's very accurate. There a couple of times that's clip, but generally he was very accurate. Has touch on the short throws, can throw the deep ball really well. Arm strength is not going to be a question. He made some deep out route throws that were just phenomenal. I remember a few times just saying in the press box, that's an NFL throw. I covered the NFL for 12 years. So I covered Vinny Testaverde, who threw a beautiful ball back in the day.
Vinny
with the Ravens. I covered the Ravens when Vinny had a Pro Bowl year.
Yeah,
and Vinny made it look like a video game. He was just like ding ding. Justin Fields can make every throw. He's got the speed. He's got the toughness. He can fight for yardage when he runs. He's a good guy. I mean, I know his father pretty well. We've become pretty close. And we kind of joke about our sons who are the same age, but he's just a smart kid. He's a level-headed kid. I think he's a very serious kid. He knows what he wants to do. He's determined to be successful. He changed his whole diet. He went vegan.
Did he really?
He went vegan in the off season just because he thought it would make his body feel better. His dad started it, and then he kind of did it because he was in quarantine in Georgia with his dad. Okay, let's try it, and liked it so much that he's kept to it. I'm assuming he still has. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he was instrumental in getting the Big Ten to reconsider playing. He formed this petition. They got hundreds of thousands of signatures online just to kind of urge the Big Ten to play. So he's a very, aside from football, if there was just stock to buy in Justin Fields as a person, whether he'll be successful in life, I'd buy that stock. I just think he's a solid guy, not going to have any off the field issues. I'd be shocked. Now, I covered Dwayne Haskins. I didn't anticipate what happened to him either.
Right. But, sure.
No, and it's not fair to compare the two very different people.
Were you surprised by that? Those reports that came out of Washington this year, just because the reports, the immaturity issues, and he didn't seem, obviously you covered him. He didn't seem like he seemed like a pretty heady guy to me in interviews when he was at Ohio State. Yeah, I am surprised. I'm not going to lie about that. I thought he would have some adjustments to make, and I did not think, honestly, that
being drafted by the Redskins, Washington, his hometown team.
Yeah.
It was that team before, I guess. Drafted by his hometown team was really the right thing for him. And a lot of that stemmed from that team's dysfunction.
Sure.
You know, when the owner wants you but the coach doesn't, that's a formula for disaster.
That's bad news.
Now, I know you never covered USC. Just wanted to get your professional opinion. You've been around NFL players, NFL quarterbacks, talents. I'm sure that you watched our quarterback, young Sam Darnold. He was a very high recruit out of USC, 3rd overall pick. In your opinion, your professional opinion, do you think that Justin Fields is at par with the way where Sam was when coming out in 2018? Would you say that they're comparable, or that Fields would be ahead in your opinion if you were looking at them in a vacuum?
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw Darnold play against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And the funny thing is, just about Sam Darnold, he looks like my son. It's the funniest thing. Hold on.
Does he really?
That's
awesome. We're gonna have to see a photo of this.
Oh,
does.
Wow, it does.
A little more fur in the face, but it does look like Sam.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow, let's find out.
At the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, I see Sam Darnold across the room. And I did a double take because I wasn't wearing my glasses. It was pretty far away. I thought, is that my son? And then I walked, I said, no, he's too tall to be my son. My son's like maybe 6'1". And then I showed him the picture of my son. He went, oh my, he was like, yes, you're right.
The doppelganger.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question, they're different players. And I only saw Sam Darnold play once live, and Ohio State pretty much had their way with USC that day. So that's probably not the best way to judge him. I think Sam Darnold might be, I'm just guessing, maybe a more natural, I don't want to say that, but I think Sam Darnold just has a natural flair for throwing the ball. I think of him as a passer.
Yeah.
Whereas Justin Fields, certainly is a passer, and I hate the idea people think he's like this dual threat guy in college or the pros. He's not. He's a quarterback. But he is clearly more mobile than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, sure is.
Yes.
I didn't see any of Sam Darnold in the pros, so I'm not qualified to answer that, honestly.
Yeah. No, okay. I'm not sure. You might not have seen Sam, but I'm not sure. And if you noticed in Jess history, we have not had the best history with the quarterback position.
I'm aware of your history. It's a star-crossed.
Oh, it's star-crossed as a guest, Bill.
Yeah, I know I'm much older than you guys, but even I don't remember the Joe Namath Super Bowl.
See, there you go. There you go. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Bill. We have lots of swings and misses, and we don't have that many picks. Really, at the top of the draft, there's Joe Namath, Mark Sanchez, and Mike, help me, there's Sanchez. There's Sam Darnold, and then mid-first round, Ken O'Brien and Chad Pennington off the top of my head.
Right.
We haven't taken, not only have we not had that many guys in the first round, but regardless of how you arrive at your quarterback position, lots of swing and misses, and it's created a certain type of kind of negative mindset in the Jet fan, in the psyche. You know what I'm saying, Bill? So
I did cover the Browns.
There you go. He knows. He knows.
Comparable. And when you kind of wallow in that misery long enough, it can beat you down. So when it comes to that position specifically, I want to just throw this at you. When we bring up Justin Fields to Jet fans, we discussed him on the show a bunch of different times, and what you hear from them often is, what Ohio State quarterback's ever been good? And they go through Haskins, Terrell Pryor, and Cardell Jones, and when I was growing up, Kenzel and Bobby Hoying. It goes back pretty far.
Yeah.
And not necessarily at that position. Plenty of great players from Ohio State, but at quarterback position translating. Not that matters. It's kind of short-sighted to think Justin Fields' future depends on that. It doesn't. But just when it comes to that position, Jet fans, they're almost like, we're looking at him, hoping he do something wrong, just because they wanted to criticize him. So I wanted to ask you, and I think you said this before, all those dudes I just mentioned beforehand, and all the guys you covered, I guess, in the past 10 years, which is much more relevant, is he the best prospect of all those guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
I thought Haskins, because he only had 1 year of experience and because he was not a great athlete, couldn't really, run to the standard that Ohio State was used to. Threw a beautiful ball. Dwayne Haskins throws a beautiful ball, and he's a smart guy. So, I am a little surprised at how badly he flamed out in Washington, especially the off the field stuff. That surprised me a lot. But when you only start 1 year, that's a question.
Sure.
Before him, Braxton Miller got hurt, so we'll never know what happened. JT Barrett was really not an NFL quarterback. Cardell Jones, again, started, 8 games, something like
sure.
that.
Yep.
But it is amazing when you look at Ohio State's history in the draft. In every other position, you can just name like an all-pro team.
Absolutely.
Just those guys, except for quarterback. I mean, probably the best is Kent Graham or Mike Tomczak. Journeyman guys.
That's probably true, though. That's probably true. Yeah. Tomczak's probably the best guy, I bet. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, a lot of that is because Woody Hayes and even Earl Bruce, they were kind of prehistoric offenses, especially Woody. Troy Smith wasn't really big enough. I mean, he was, a great college quarterback.
Yeah.
He was a 5th-round pick. And so, is there pressure on Justin Fields because of that? I mean, I don't know if pressure is the right word. I think there's probably skepticism toward him, maybe more than if he were coming from a different elite program.
Yeah.
That's just, I think he believes. And I think he does. He has all the tools to be a successful NFL quarterback.
Can he handle
physically? The pressure is not going to get to him. I don't think. He never got rattled with anything. He's never going to say something stupid in a press conference.
Yeah.
His teammates really like him. Quarterback's in a funny position. They want you to lead them, and they want you to kind of have that arrogance to tell other positions, get your, what together.
Right.
On the other hand, they want him to be one of the guys. And I think he was. He was one of the guys, but I think he also commanded respect. I think, as I said earlier, with the way that last year, 2019, he didn't come in as, hey, I'm the savior. That was not his attitude. So I'm going to just shut up and do my work and win respect through my work. And this year, not just Justin Fields, all these college players, they sacrificed so much just to play. They lived essentially as hermits, other than being in the facility and playing the games. Yeah. Because the fear of COVID was so big. Justin Fields lived by himself with his dog, and that was it.
Wow.
They never saw, all these players were like that. They never saw anybody other than at the facility or at games.
Yeah.
His father would go to games and he would wave to him. That would be it. No hugs, no, think about how hard that is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And again, it wasn't just Justin Fields, it was the whole team and really everyone in college football. But it was, I give all the credit in the world to college football players for doing what they did to play last year.
So you do believe that Justin Fields can handle the pressure of New York City, because here is a media market like no other. The paper will go after you immediately. It doesn't even matter if it's your first game. I know Sam had a bad game, his second game against the Dolphins, and the Post was ripping him already.
Mike Piazza got booed his first game. I was there, and I was like, what is everyone doing? Stop. He's not going to want to stay here. What are we doing?
It's tough in New York, but you think, and we've heard that he's a Joe Douglas type of guy. Like Joe Douglas, our GM, he's very high on character. This guy's a leader. This guy, like you said, people respect him in the locker room. He's not going to be out at the clubs. He's not going to be doing, stupid things. But you do think that he can handle the pressures of the Big Apple.
Yeah, I think so. Now, it's always a mystery because he's 22 years old or whatever he is. And and he's going to be a multi-gazillionaire and
good point.
I'm just saying, I think he's as well prepared to handle it as any quarterback I've covered.
Fair.
Cardale Jones was a knucklehead for most of his college career. He just was. I love Cardale. He's a great guy, but he was not exactly Mr. Maturity for most of his college career. Troy Smith wasn't either, honestly, when he was here. Who were the other guys? Haskins, I'm surprised by what happened, but as I said earlier, I'm not surprised that it didn't work out with his hometown team.
Well, he's with Mike Tomlin now, so we'll see what happens with the Steelers.
Right, he'll get a second chance.
And I know, Bill, you also cover the Blue Jackets out there. In Columbus. Occasionally. And I want to ask you a question. Our boy John Tortorella is the coach out there. He's been doing a great job. Had a 1-year stop over there in Vancouver and then has been with you guys ever since leaving the Rangers. Like I said, he's done a great job, but how is the interactions? Because I know how it was in New York, his interactions with the media. I don't know if you have any personal interactions with him at all, because he is somebody that will get right to the point if he doesn't like a question or a specific person. Yeah. How has he been with the media in Columbus, back and forth with you guys? Has it been all good? Has he been testy sometimes with you guys?
He's been good. I mean, I'm very good friends with, both our beat writer and then Aaron Portzline, who writes for The Athletic, used to be with our paper.
Okay.
And look, reporters like good quotes, and he gives you good quotes. You can. I mean, there are times when he gets the red ass. Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I'll tell you, John Tortorella story again. I barely knew him, especially then. This is 3 years ago, and I very rarely covered the team. And I happened to. He's a big dog lover. I don't know if you know that about him.
Yep.
A big dog lover.
Yep.
So I happened to cover a game right after my dog died, the one that's over my shoulder. And it was the first dog I'd ever had. I was devastated.
Sure, yeah.
And so I'm talking to John Tortorella. Actually, I wasn't covering the game. I was doing a story about leadership. And so I asked him to do this interview, and he was great for 20 minutes. He was great talking about leadership. And on my phone, the picture, the screenshot is of my dog, Lucy. And he looked at it, and I pointed out, yeah, she just died 2 weeks ago. And this is what he said to me. He said, they're designed to break your heart. I thought that was a perfect description, because that's true. If they do their job, they live for 10 or 12 years or whatever it is, and you're heartbroken. Well, but if you love them, that's what happens. And that gave me comfort. I mean, it was just one line.
Yeah.
He said, I think there's a lot. I mean, I don't know him well. I mean, if you asked him, Bill Rabinowitz, he wouldn't know who I am, I'm sure. But I think that he is a thoughtful guy who, every now and then the whatever in him gets pumping. He gets frustrated. You get to these press conferences right after the game.
Yeah.
He can be hot about it. And I know Larry Brooks, and he had their moments together.
Oh my God.
And I guess Brooks is a provocateur. I don't know him, but he pushed his buttons. Yep. And I think John Tortorella is somebody, if you try to push his buttons, you could probably push his buttons.
Oh yeah. Oh, we know all too well over here, Bill.
But he's been in the Zoom calls, especially this year. If I ask a question, he'll give me a thoughtful answer. There's no nastiness or insults or anything like that. So there. I mean, do I know him?
That's good.
I know, but
that was a great story.
We appreciate that context. That's awesome, because we've gotten to know him throughout the years. I know you're not, I'm not sure if you do mock drafts or anything like that.
Fortunately, not.
But if you had a prediction now, just based on all that you know, and you were to guess, with Lawrence and Devontae and Smith and Penei Sewell and Zach Wilson and all these guys that are coming out in the draft and all the teams. Where would you be? Where is your bet on where Justin Fields is going to end up next year?
Well, I think so much. I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence will be the first pick. I mean, I'll be shocked if that comes. Yeah. I think after that, it's a crapshoot. I mean, you guys have the second pick, and I think it could be Zach Wilson. I think it could be Justin Fields. I think they're probably going to decide between those two, unless the new coach comes in and watches enough of Sam Darnold, say, I feel comfortable with him being my guy. And if that's the case, then you don't want to take a quarterback. I don't know where that stands. I mean, you know far better than I do about that. And then you've got some wild cards, Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, and even the tight end Pitts from Florida. I mean, probably not where you're going, but top 5, 6 kind of thing. I think it's a very fluid draft after you get past Trevor Lawrence. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets took Fields. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Atlanta did. I mean, I thought Detroit might be like the landing spot if he fell at 7, but obviously they just got Jared Goff, so they're not going to take him. It's I don't know enough about what the other teams might be thinking or what their needs are to know. Do I think he's a top 5 talent? Yeah, I absolutely think he's a top 5 talent.
Yeah.
But I don't know that necessarily means that he's going to go, second or whatever. I just, your guess is better than mine.
Yeah, and I think the draft's going to really start with the Jets, because we know that number 1 pick. Everyone knows what that, unless, the Jaguars are just asleep at the wheel or something. Mike is sending out miracle messages to people. Zach Wilson rated ahead of Lawrence. We're scouring the internet for these links, Bill, to give us any evidence that maybe there's a chance if we know what's going to happen.
Well, I've covered enough drafts over the years to know that the closer you get to the draft, the more lying teams do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so it's all smoke screens, it's all deception, and you just ignore it all and take who you think they're going to take. Or I hated doing mock drafts because you're just designed failure. There's no way you're going to get it
because
right.
one thing goes awry and the whole rest of your draft is done for.
Exactly.
And we learned this the hard way. We've attempted these mock drafts the last couple of years. We were like, let's wade into this. Let's do the research. Let's read all the articles. And the best experts. Mel Kiper gets the whole thing wrong. So, I mean, if he's getting it wrong and he gets paid all that money, what the hell are we supposed to do, you know?
One year I got 9 of the first 11 picks right.
Oh, wow. That's tremendous.
Well, I had a little help. I was covering, I think it was the Ravens at that point. And their guy basically did the mock draft for me.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Hey, whatever you got to do to get the information. The only pick we got right last year, I think.
I was going, nice job, man.
Take the credit, man. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But Bill, man, this has really been a pleasure. We really want to thank you for joining us. I really, really appreciate it, giving us your insight on Ohio State football. I hope moving forward, if you want in the future, you could jump on with us again, maybe before the draft or something like that. Give us some more of your knowledge. You know, we have a lot of transplanted New Yorkers somehow in Columbus that listen to our show. So all of you people, follow Bill, get the Dispatch, follow him on Twitter. If you're an Ohio State fan, go get his books. They're sold everywhere. Go get them, guys. You know they're tremendous. If they're anywhere near as good as Bill was today, I'm sure they're a great read. So thank you again, Bill. God bless you and your family, man. We really appreciate you giving us some time today.
Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. All right.